Welcome to the IABC International Podcast, Nick. Nick, let's start from the very beginning. What is your involvement with IABC 20, the World Conference in Chicago?
Good morning, Dan. Yes, I'm currently the chair for the IABC conference in Chicago for 2020. And looking forward to a great conference.
Just out of interest, what is the process for becoming the chair of an IABC World Conference?
It's a 3-year commitment. First year you're the vice chair, and so you learn the ropes. Second year you're the chair, and then the third year you're the past chair. So you carry on and pass on your knowledge and learning to the chair, the incoming chair, who in 2021 is Jane Mitchell. As how I got involved or how I got invited, I was fortunate enough to meet Victoria Dew through the process of work, and she was obviously the chair this year of IABC, and we were talking one evening, and she said, would I put my hat in the ring for the chair of the conference? And I thought about it for a while and said yeah. And then went through an interview process with some of the committee, and that was that.
So, when it comes to the decision-making process and the theming of the World Conference, let's start from the very beginning. Why Chicago, and why this year's theme?
Okay, Chicago, the locations are scouted out years before. Obviously, with a conference of this size, there isn't that many suitable venues, and obviously with location being a key issue in terms of people coming from all over the world. So getting to be in a central hub is really important. So the decision for Chicago was made before I got involved. And the 21 decision is also, I presume, being made, and I have no idea where that is. So there's no long form commercial for that. But the theme is definitely mine, or ours, should I say? I mean, I was asked to talk to a number of people in the industry to sort of find out where the trends are, what the key issues are. And from that, we then determined that with the full-time staff, determine a theme that we can sort of carry on from the last year's theme, but carry on to something new this year. So for me, Shift, Are You Ready? Or hashtag Are You Ready? Is really about the pace of change that we're all facing at the moment. And, every industry is changing rapidly, and I was just keen to make sure that we in the communications industry recognize that pace of change and challenge ourselves to really think and shift our thinking around what we need to be doing to be relevant and topical.
What are the opportunities that come up when you think about the shift and the pace of change? What are the opportunities? And on the other hand, what are the pieces that we look at when you think there's also some vulnerabilities, and maybe there's a space for how people can look out for themselves and not fall into the pit?
Yeah, I mean, change is always scary. I mean, everybody says it. We say it in our industry. It is scary, but you can look at it in two ways. One is like, oh, I don't want to do this. I'll run away from it. Or two, you think, well, it's inevitable, so I might as well run towards it. My opinion is, I do actually. I'm one of the weird ones that likes the change. So for me, it's like running towards it, embrace it. It's going to happen. You can't stop it. King Canute and all that sort of thing. You just never going to stop that tide coming in. So why don't you run towards it, embrace it, and do something with it? And that provides opportunities. But it is a bit scary. So I can understand people's trepidation, the change curve and all that sort of thing we're all familiar with. That definitely plays. We can't avoid it. But at the same time, you can't avoid the change either. So that's why you have to embrace it.
At an IABC World Conference, there are two approaches for speakers. Firstly are the invited keynotes and world-renowned speakers. And then, of course, we also leverage the experience and the professionalism within our own association for speakers to come forward and pitch their ideas for talks of their own. Have you got an idea of the shape of some of these keynotes? Have you seen some of the direction that we're going to be going in during the conference itself? And when it comes to the people who answered the open call, have you got a taster of some of those topics?
There's two processes, as we already said. The one is for the main keynote, the keynote presentations, which we look around for people that have relevant messages to our topic. Everything's driven from the theme and the topic, which is obviously shift. Are you ready? So that's a sort of fairly arduous process of looking around and seeing who's saying interesting things, who's doing interesting things, and then from there we sort of make approaches to the keynotes that we want. If they accept, that's great. And we have got some great keynotes this year, so I will emphasize that. The three that we've announced are really top class. I was talking to Max Luther yesterday. I think his presentation is going to be fantastic about the trends. I know Abigail, she's also a great speaker, and her point of view is always interesting. Carmen, I've seen some of her stuff. It is really interesting, and again, an alternative view, and it will hopefully cause you to shift your mindset to think, oh, I never thought about it in that way. So there's one more to be announced, which I won't do today, but that's coming soon. With regard to the open call, there is a process that's been in place, well, way before I got involved, where we look at all the submissions. Each submission is judged by two independent PAC members who we select from the industry for 2020, and there'll be another set of PAC members for 2021, and go through a sort of a process. Well, we go through a process and look at content, its relevance to the theme. You know, what are people going to learn? What are people going to take away? And then they are judged, and after that, then the senior PAC members re-look at every submission again to see that it's appropriate. So it's a fairly arduous process on both sides, and I know there's a lot of people put a lot of effort into their submissions, and it's a shame that we just can't get more in. But we have got 60 sessions this year in Chicago. I won't preempt them because there's a lot more to be done on the marketing side of those, but there is some wonderful sessions.
The reason I know that people consider speaking at a world conference as an absolute highlight is that when you see on their social media, hooray, I've been accepted to speak, or I've been invited to speak, and I can say this from the people I spoke to last year and the people that I've spoken to from the UK, and Canada and US and Australia and other places, regardless of whichever association they're a member of, they consider the IABC World Conference the creme de la creme, the conference you need to attend multiple times in your life. I was going to say once in your life, but that's clearly wrong. You need to attend it multiple times, because each conference, whilst it's got this flow from one to the next, as you said, there's always more to gain to have that latest relevance and build on the skill set that you already have. One of my favorite things about World Conference was walking down the corridors between the sessions and just hearing people from massively different backgrounds engage with each other, get to know them individually, each other individually, but also say, oh, we've just been in this session and we've learned this, but this is how we apply it in our country or within our practice. How do you do it in yours? And those were some of the most fantastic conversations to listen to. I took part in a few of them, but I was mainly listening to other people really engaging with the conference. From your experience from last year in Vancouver, what did you have as a takeaway that you wanted to go, okay, next year I want to build on that piece?
Vancouver was fantastic, and I did have a wonderful time and met some great people, and learnt a lot. I think for me, I want people now to sort of, having thought forward in Vancouver, are now having hopefully shifted some of their opinions and their mindsets. It's, what am I going to do? It's the action items that I'm sort of keen to drive in Chicago. So, I always sort of say in my professional career is that, okay, well, this is all very well, we've identified an issue, we've identified an opportunity, whatever it is, but what are the 3 things that we're going to do differently in the next 3, 6, 12 months? And if you can identify those things, then action will take place. Although, I love the debate with colleagues and other people in the industry, we are in business. We do have to take action, and the pace of change is forcing this lots of things on us. Sometimes we embrace them, sometimes we don't. But the reality is, we have to take action. We have to do things differently. And I think, for me, it's if people walk away thinking, oh, I can do that, and I can do that differently from what I'm doing it today, and I can hopefully see the benefits very quickly, then the industry will move forward.
The biggest killer in my mind of any industry is we've always done it this way because it works, and you don't move to that next level because we've always done it this way. And for me, one of the biggest reasons for coming to this conference is to go, okay, well, can I challenge that? This is a great safe space to be able to look at opportunities and see how other people are doing it and what could be applied to my world. Take that information back to my employer, to my clients, to my community, regardless of the shape of your organization, and say, hey, these were the learning points. This is the value that I got from attending. Now let's move forward with our organization with the things that we can apply that we've learned. Yeah.
I mean, and one of the things that I point out, and so I get asked, well, what are the changes that are coming down? And of course, they're numerous and vast and all over the place. But one of the ones that's really simple is that because of the changes in technology over the last decade, communication was perceived and is somewhat perceived as one way. But we now live in a world where it's dialogue. It's two-way. That's one of the massive changes. And I think that communicators haven't traditionally been schooled in the art of listening. Corporations are certainly not schooled in the art of listening, although, and I don't include market research in that sort of statement, but the ability to listen to what people want and then take that on board and change your behavior accordingly, it's a fairly new skill. I mean, I would say it's certainly a decade old, and we're not good at it yet, but we're getting better and better. So that's one of the things. So these sorts of conferences where everybody comes together, everybody does debate, everybody does hopefully challenge each other in a constructive way, are fantastic and are a learning exercise in a new skill from that point of view alone. But the ability for companies, organizations, and individuals, senior managers, to learn to listen better is a skill that I think we need to keep pushing hard for the next decade, certainly. And it's going to be interesting to see who succeeds and who doesn't succeed in that, because it's no longer one-way communication. It's definitely two-way communication. But we've got a whole century of one-way communication, so it's not going to be easy to make that transition for many. Some will find it natural, but others won't. So it's going to be interesting to watch that unfold. But the conference is fantastic as a learning exercise for that.
The best place for people to get information right now and to get their hands on tickets to secure their places is going to wc.iabc.com. make sure you attend. This is a game changer when you are a communicator in what an event can do for you, your career, and the success of your organization. It really is a difference maker. Nick Pearce, thank you so much for joining me here on the IABC International Podcast.
Thank you very much indeed, and look forward to seeing everybody in Chicago in June.